Throughout history, revolutions have ignited the flames of change, toppling monarchies, redefining freedoms, and redrawing the world map. Today, we're exploring the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and the Russian Revolution, three seismic events that reshaped human history. Each began with the promise of liberty. Each ended with consequences no one could have fully foreseen. Let's dive into the revolutions that changed everything. The American Revolution 1775 to 1783 wasn't just a colonial rebellion, it was a radical experiment in democracy. Frustrated by British taxation without representation, 13 colonies took up arms, declaring independence in 1776. Figures like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin became the architects of a new nation. The revolution introduced revolutionary ideas like popular sovereignty, natural rights, and limited government, influencing political thought worldwide. Yet, it also left contradictions, freedom for some, while slavery persisted. The US Constitution born out of this revolution would become a blueprint, but not without flaws. The growing tensions prompted the British monarch to declare Massachusetts to be in a state of rebellion and ordered that the American patriots be disarmed. A British unit left Boston Common and marched on nearby Lexington to capture rebel leaders Samuel Adams and John Hancock, as well as their cache of weapons and ammunition. A prearranged signal of light from the steeple of the Old North Church, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, alerted Paul Revere and William Dawes to ride toward Lexington and Concord to spread the alarm that the British soldiers were on the way. Minutemen first engaged the British in open combat on April 19, 1775, on Lexington Green, where the shot heard round the world was fired. Prior to this skirmish, Captain John Parker uttered the phrase, "If they mean to have a war, let it begin here." British troops finally evacuated Boston several years later. After Benedict Arnold and Ethan Allen captured Fort Ticonderoga, large cannons were transported overland to emplacements on Dorchester Heights overlooking the city. These cannons and fortifications made it impossible to penetrate the city of Boston, so British forces withdrew. Before becoming a traitor, Arnold would also rally American troops to victory at the Battle of Saratoga, which encouraged Spain to join France in fighting against Britain. The evacuation did not happen because Comte de Grasse's naval forces defeated the British fleet sent for relief during the Battle of the Chesapeake. Washington then led his combined force in laying siege to Yorktown in late September 1781. The surrender of Cornwallis and his army in October of that year convinced the British government to negotiate an end to the war and recognize America's independence. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3, 1783, which marked the end of the Revolutionary War. In 1789, fueled by economic hardship, royal extravagance, and Enlightenment ideals, the French people rose against King Louis XVI. The French Revolution sought to dismantle the old regime, replacing monarchy with republic. The cry of liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, brotherhood echoed across Europe. But the revolution spiraled into the reign of terror, where thousands, including Queen Marie Antoinette, faced the guillotine. Power shifted violently, from radicals like Robespierre to military strongmen like Napoleon Bonaparte. Despite its chaos, the revolution spread concepts of citizen rights, secular governance, and nationalism, ideals that still shape modern democracies. A larger population created a greater demand for food and consumer goods. The discovery of new gold mines in Brazil had led to a general rise in prices throughout the West from about 1730, indicating a prosperous economic situation. From about 1770, this trend slackened, and economic crises, provoking alarm and even revolt, became frequent. Arguments for social reform began to be advanced. The philosophes, intellectuals whose writings inspired these arguments, were certainly influenced by 17th century theorists such as René Descartes, Benedict de Spinoza, and John Locke. But they came to very different conclusions about political, social, and economic matters. A revolution seemed necessary to apply the ideas of Montesquieu, Voltaire, or Jean-Jacques Rousseau. This enlightenment was spread among the educated classes by the many societies of thought that were founded at that time: Masonic lodges, agricultural societies, and reading room. This coalition of Austria, Russia, Turkey, and Great Britain won great successes during the spring and summer of 1799 and drove back the French armies to the frontiers. Bonaparte thereupon returned to France to exploit his own great prestige and the disrepute into which the military reverses had brought the government. His coup d'état of 18 Brumaire overthrew the Directory and substituted the consulate. Although Bonaparte proclaimed the end of the revolution, he himself was to spread it in new forms throughout Europe. By 1917, after years of hardship during World War I, Russia's patience with Tsar Nicholas II's autocratic rule snapped. The Russian Revolution began with mass protests, strikes, and the abdication of the Tsar. Initially, a provisional government tried to steer Russia toward democracy, but growing unrest and failures gave radical factions, led by Vladimir Lenin, the chance to seize power. The October Revolution replaced the fragile republic with Bolshevik rule, birthing the world's first major communist state. This revolution unleashed a brutal civil war, famine, and purges, but also created a superpower that would dominate much of the 20th century, the Soviet Union. Other Soviets were formed in major cities and towns, choosing members from factories and military units. The Soviet movement was dominated by the Socialist Revolutionary Party, followed by the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. Between March and October, the provisional government was reorganized 4 times. Alexander Kerensky became its head in July. He survived a coup attempt by Lavrov Kornilov, but was unable to halt Russia's slide into political and military chaos. By September, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, had achieved majorities in the Petrograd and Moscow Soviets, and won increasing support among the hungry urban workers and soldiers. In October, they staged a nearly bloodless coup, the October Revolution, occupying government buildings and strategic points. Kerensky tried unsuccessfully to organize resistance, then fled the country. N. Politics: fundamental, rapid, and often irreversible change in the established order. Revolution involves a radical change in government, usually accomplished through violence, that may also result in changes to the economic system, social structure, and cultural values. The ancient Greeks viewed revolution as the undesirable result of societal breakdown. A strong value system, firmly adhered to, was thought to protect against it. During the Middle Ages, much attention was given to finding means of combating revolution and stifling societal change. With the advent of Renaissance humanism, there arose the belief that radical changes of government are sometimes necessary and good, and the idea of revolution took on more positive connotations. Despite different contexts, these revolutions shared common threads. Economic desperation fueled unrest. Inequality and injustice ignited mass anger. New ideas of governance, democracy, socialism, nationalism emerged. Violence often accompanied idealism. Revolutions show that change often comes at great cost, and that utopias imagined at the start rarely survive the messy realities of power. The American, French, and Russian revolutions didn't just topple governments, they reshaped how we think about rights, power, and freedom. Which revolution do you think had the most lasting impact? Comment below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more deep dives into the events that changed history.